Good afternoon to each one of you. I know this is a tough time to be awake, so I hope you have your coffee or any sort of caffeine with you, and we'll try and not, make this conversation as exciting as we can. So when we talk about building inclusive organizations, I think that can be only fully realized when disabilities or people with disabilities are also included in them. Today, I wanted to talk about a space that is exceedingly underserved, but very, very close to my heart, that of intellectual and development disabilities. My journey here started quite by chance. It began one morning when a dear friend brought me and I set foot on the Jai Vakeel campus. Here, I met children who inhabited a world so different from mine. Their ability to comprehend and process information was so different from mine. I learned about a new space. I learned that if 100 is the normal IQ, then people who have an IQ of 70 and below are known as intellectually challenged. With this, they're often coupled with other disabilities like visual impairment, hearing impairment, autism, and or a combination. And all of this makes progress for them slow, but not impossible. I learned that 2% of our population has intellectual disability. 2% means 26 million people, or 1 in 50. When I looked at these statistics, I started wondering that if the numbers are so high, I could not remember the last time that I had come across a person with IDD in any theater that I went to, in any public space, malls, weddings, anywhere, right? And I was like, that is strange. I stayed. I stayed because these children gave me a sense of purpose and a joy that is honestly impossible to express. But having said that, my work here was really cut out for me. And I often wondered, whether I'd be able to do justice to the legacy that I was walking into. So let me explain what I meant by that. Jai Vakeel was started 76 years ago for a girl child who had intellectual disability by her mother, Mrs. Vakeel. So clearly, Mrs. Vakeel was a pioneer and a very courageous woman who even won the Padma Shri for the work she had started and was doing. She was succeeded by her daughter, Mrs. Temina Shra, who was also exceedingly bold and charismatic. And hence, you can understand my concern or reservation about being able to live up to this legacy. I also learned that as per the World Bank Group statistics, India had about 40 to 80 million persons with disabilities, and about 70% of them were actually not part of the workforce. I realized that within the disability space, there was actually no or very little data, right? And therefore, the space of intellectual disability was a group that continues to be excluded from India's mainstream developmental narrative. Would I really be able to do any justice to the children that I had committed to serve? Was my biggest concern. One of the first things that we did when I took on the leadership role was to actually step back and revisit our vision. And we now realize that our vision had evolved from being care for the child to actually being inclusion for the child. And we defined inclusion to be at a family level, at the community level, and at society level. So on our 2-acre campus in Sivri, Mumbai, we have about 700 children with whom we impart therapy, education, skill development, art, music, dance, drama, etc. All of this is designed or is working towards enabling each of them to be more inclusive in their lives and therefore lived more fulfilling lives. What does this mean on our campus? It means today that all our kids who can give the 10th standard exam are now giving the 10th standard exam. 16 of our children have actually participated in the International Olympics and won medals for the country. And 29 of our children we have placed in open employment over the last 7 years. right? But we do understand that even for our 700 kids on our campus, inclusion means different things for different kids. So let me talk to you about Bharat. Bharat came to us when he was 5 years old. He has a very unique syndrome called the Zimmerman-Laban syndrome, which basically means that his head is a bit large, his mouth and gums are a little large. When he came to us, he was diagnosed to have severe intellectual disability. He was unable to even use his fingers to grip or grasp anything. He had weak head and trunk control. Now, 3 years later, with intense therapy as well as educational interventions, Bharat, as you can see, is able to sit by himself. He's independently walking. He's able to express himself, and he's also able to hold a spoon and eat independently. Now, something which sounds so simple actually has a huge effect in terms of his inclusion quotient, right? Because now that Bharat can eat independently, he's part of the dinner conversation and the dinner activity that happens together as a family. Now, when Ganpati comes, his parents can take Bharat to his neighbor's house where he will be able to eat his prasad independently. And as a family, they can go out and enjoy a meal outside. I would also like to play another video for another child of ours, Akshay, who we've managed to place in open employment.
We've had Akshay with us. Akshay has been here for, I think, around 4 to 5 years. And he's made a lot of progress. He's really come on well and continues to improve and grow every day. And is a confident, happy boy.
Quiet fellow, sweet fellow, always keeps laughing. He never says, I will not do it, I don't know to do it. He tries, and he will do, and he is doing. Right. Now he is in packing, making the packets, doing the deliveries, bringing the checks.
You've got to be very clear in your communication. Give them one task at a time. So how you sort of nurture them, and you get down to a scale which, you build them up one block at a time.
हमें तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है वो काम आता है म्हणजे मला वाटत पण नव्हता तो काम करेल किंवा पैसे आणेल किंवा एवढं म्हणजे भरपूर मी आनंद आहे त्याच्याविषयी म्हणजे त्याचं टेन्शन नाही आता आम्हाला सर पण खूप चांगले आहेत त्याला मदत करतात किंवा सांभाळून घेतात सगळे कंपनीतले लोक त्याला
In the current scenario, he'd be better than many people because A, he's regular and he does everything that's asked for. Yeah.
अभी जो है उसके अपन बदल तो नहीं सकते तो अभी वो उनको एक कम है तो अपने को थोड़ी ना कम है कि अपन उसके ज़्यादा एग्जस्ट ना मांगते हैं अपने को
काम पे ज़्यादा तो खुश है हम लोग वो भी खुश है हम लोग भी खुश हैं
Yeah, it's not only helped him, it's helped us. It started off with helping him, but in a way we've helped ourselves also.
So of the 700 odd children that we work with on our campus annually, honestly, we've been able to place only 29 of our kids in the last 6 or 7 years in open employment. But the reality is that we dream to champion 26 million dreams, right? Not by ourselves, but we need partners who believe in this audacious dream. Partners like each one of you who are here today listening to this conversation and wanting to be a part of this changed story, right? The numbers are so large and the need is so great. How can we make the world a better place for people with disability, as well as for those without? Honestly, the answer is simple, right? And I think each one of us can start with ourselves. By changing our perceptions and attitudes, our actions will follow, right? I think each one of us can look around in our community and see who are the people who have any disabilities. We can engage with them. We can reach out to them, have a conversation, take the time, listen, right? The other one would be talk to our children about inclusion. When they ask us questions, answer them very honestly. If there is a child with a disability in your community, invite them to your child's birthday party. Who knows that one invitation that you make may change the life of not the other person, but your own. The other things that we can do is, if we work in a company, reach out to HR and ask, do we have a policy where we hire people with a disability? If not, can we do so? In India, it's often considered that when you hire a person with a disability, it's some sort of an act of charity, right? Or you're fulfilling some mandated corporate social responsibility. But hey, we found a study which is actually completely debunking that thought process. So there's a study that has been done by Boston Consulting Group, along with Youth for Jobs and the Skill Development Council of India. And they had a really, really interesting finding, right? Across all the organizations that they did this study on, they found that all the persons with disability were actually more productive, almost ranging from 5 to 8%. Their absenteeism was much lower, and they didn't kind of leave the jobs unlike other people and go job hopping from one place to the other. In addition to these benefits, the bottom line of the company also grew anywhere between 2 to 3%. In general, the goodwill and the feeling of being part of a good organization was very high in these organizations, as well as the customer satisfaction was much higher than their competitors. So I think, in short, there are a lot of merits and a lot of benefits to actually, getting children or people with disabilities into the organization. We truly believe that communities are stronger when we are all included and when everyone can participate and have a voice. I'd like to leave you with, one saying which all of us truly relate to. And I think it's about diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, but belonging is having that voice heard. And I think what we all need to do collectively, as individuals as well as society, is to ensure that every one of us belongs. I'd like to just end with a short video again, which kind of encapsulates everything that we just talked about.
With 100 being a normal IQ and 70 being children with intellectual disability, children who have IQs of 30 and below usually have severe to profound intellectual disability.
People see a group that is highly being misunderstood.
लोग हमारे बच्चों को दया की नज़र से देखते हैं।
लोग ऐसे बच्चों को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते हैं और उनके पास जाने के लिए झिझकते हैं।
People see my sister as a nuisance and they want us to leave from the society.
अनएबल होने की वजह से ऐसे बच्चों से लोग बहुत डरते हैं।
लोग मेरे बेटे को देखते हैं तो उनको समझ में नहीं आता है, इसलिए उनको ये बात समझ में आता है कि ये पागल है, उतना ही कुछ नहीं।
लोग उनके बच्चों को इनके साथ मिक्सअप नहीं करना चाहते हैं।
ये बच्चे सभी के ऊपर बोझ है।
her smile which brightens our party.
ये बच्चे हिम्मत नहीं हारते।
मैं देखती हूँ कि ईश्वरी को आजू बाजू के लोगों में रहना बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
I see in my sister it's someone who has an unconditional love.
मैं देखती हूँ कि मुझे मेरे तीनों बच्चों में कोई फर्क नहीं है, तीनों बच्चे मेरे एक समान हैं।
जब मैं मेरी बेटी की आंखों में देखती हूँ तो उसके आंखों में बहुत सारे एक्सप्रेशंस है, फीलिंग्स है।
हर एक बच्चे में अलग अलग एबिलिटी होती है।
अगर समाज के प्रवाह में उनको रहना है, उनके आगे बढ़ाना है, तो हमको उनको अपना ही दर्जा देना पड़ेगा। ये मैं देखता हूँ।
As part of having a low IQ, many of these children have behavior issues, they respond to situations differently, and some of them may even look different. If you do come across a child with severe intellectual disability and his behavior is not appropriate for his age, do remember it's because of his intellectual quotient. However, he has every right to be loved, included, and accepted in our society, just like you and me.
One of the first things over here, Anchal, I would say that as an organization, they should truly want to take children, take individuals as part of the workforce who have some sort of a disability, right? And I think there you have to understand the finer nuances of each of the disabilities, right? So visual impairment, hearing impairment, a physical limitation, etc. So I think it's very important to understand a little bit of the disability space because, like we all know, there are 21 disabilities that have been listed. So it's not like a one size fits all for every disability, right? And then looking at the nature of the work that is being done in the company, we should try and see which one would make the most sense for the organization. You need to do like a kind of a matching in terms of the work that you do as well as the profile of the person from that disability that you're seeking to take. The other way to do the conversation is say, I want somebody from this particular disability. So let me talk with a specialist over there to see what does that mean to have a person here work with us. The second would be understand and then solve for the finer nuances, right? Which means what do I need to do in terms of my physical infrastructure, whether it's a ramp or whatever it takes in terms of the physical infrastructure. And the third, and I think one of the most critical pieces to this would be the employee sensitization, right? This cannot be done to just put a tick it cannot be just for a tick value. It has to be something that you really, really want to do as an organization. And so if it means sensitization, what does it mean in terms of, the peer group support, in terms of the reporting line support, etc. So build in some kind of a mechanism whereby you're constantly evaluating and looking out to ensure the success of this initiative and not really look at, how often we're stumbling and failing and therefore why is it a hard thing to do? So let me give you an example of even Prodon, right? The one that we saw over here. So Jahangir is somebody who has been very closely associated with Jai Vakeel over the years. He's been helping us with our printing. And when we wanted to start this initiative, we were nervous. The parents were nervous, as was Jahangir, right? When we had a conversation with him, we said, look, we can keep all these children on our campus forever. But I don't think that would be inclusion. So inclusion means we have to understand what does it take for us as an organization? What does it take from a parental perspective? Because parents were also nervous, right? They were like, he's comfortable over here. Do we really want to send him out? Yes, we'd like him to be mainstreamed, but we're nervous. Help us understand and make those changes happen. And from Jahangir's perspective, he was like, I may want it, but I have to make sure that it kind of filters down to his direct line of reporting. What does it mean on the shop floor, etc. So we have a team, like we mentioned over here, the team that is put together specifically for placements. And I think that team worked for a couple of months before with the Prodon employees, with the person who was going to be his direct line of reporting, as well as peers. We then worked with Akshay. We sent him for a couple of hours a week, then a couple of days a week, and then the whole integration happened. Even after that, there is consistent communication between them and our team to ensure that if there are any hiccups, minor or major, we make it happen together. Do what it takes to make it happen, and just don't, do a tick value and say, oh, I tried, it was really hard.